The style that I chose is the self-check style. This style is where the teacher or instructor hands out a checklist to each student before beginning the lesson. Some of the key points, like the teacher can show a demonstration first of what the skills should look like, but there should be no other command or practice or any other teaching style used. The check sheet will be the way the students will assess themselves. So the teacher will hand out the check sheet to each student. So the student will practice the skill using the check sheet. This allows students to get more practice time during this teaching style. So instead of spending 10 minutes or so at the beginning of the lesson explaining how to perform the skill, the student will actually begin their lesson by reading the check sheet and then teaching themselves how to perform this skill. An example of what the check sheet would look like is kind of like this. This explains that the skill is going to be the basketball shot, specifically the free throw, which is a stationary shot. An acronym that is popularly used for this skill is BEEF. It's an acronym for bend your knees, elbow in, eyes on the basket, and follow through. The students would look at the picture and then demonstrate using the cues in BEEF. So it kind of points there where it shows eyes on the basket, ball up, elbow in, bent knees, and then looking towards the basket. This is an example of a student receiving the ball and then practicing BEEF. So after reading the check sheet, the student will then practice the skill, and then they'll think the entire time about what those skill cues are. So balance, elbow in, eyes on the basket, and follow through. At the elementary level, pictures on the check sheet will work better than using words. Self-assessment is made based on comparing their abilities to the check sheet. So each student will practice each level, each checklist option. So the first one, bend knee. So they will assess themselves on whether or not they bent their knees during the shot, whether or not their elbow was in, whether or not they had their eyes on the basket, and then ultimately the follow through. So they're going to grade themselves on how well they think they did. At this level, you could potentially use a partner or groups in the activity because students are assessing themselves, so it is up to them to be honest about how well they perform the activity. Teachers are going to provide feedback where necessary, maybe like safety concerns or that they're in their own personal space and that they're on task. Otherwise, the student is actually teaching themselves. Before beginning the lesson, students need to know which hand is their dominant hand, especially at the elementary level where students may see others, say if they're left-handed, they may see their friends or others who are probably the majority are going to be right-handed. They may be left-handed, and they need to know that that is going to look differently for them. At this level, you can also modify using a smaller ball or a smaller goal so students can be more successful. So you want to modify for the age level. At the middle school level, it's probably best to use a mixture of words and pictures. Since these students can read, it may be a little more helpful for them to have words as well as pictures so they can know exactly what they need to do, how much they need to bend their knees and how far in their elbow goes and things like that. Again, self-assessment is made based on comparing skills to the check sheet. Students need to be spread out into personal space while practicing the skill. This is a safety concern. Students don't need to be grouped together unless they're made aware of this at the beginning of the skill, at the beginning of the lesson, so that way they can practice the skill this way. They can learn or practice the skill alone or with a partner. Results of makes and misses do not determine the success of the skill. This is really important, especially at the middle school level, because a lot of the times when thinking of basketball in particular, students want to make sure that they're making everything that they shoot, but that doesn't mean that they're actually performing the skill correctly. So just because they don't make a basket doesn't mean that they're not performing the skill correctly. So the main success in this skill is that they're performing each skill level, skill cue appropriately. Again, before beginning, ensure students know which hand is their dominant hand. At this level, students may still have not played basketball before or may not know what their dominant hand is yet. And you can also modify using a smaller ball or smaller goal at this level as well. At the high school level, pictures are still necessary because it's still helpful to be able to see the picture and know that you're lining up with what the skill is required. But words can be helpful at this age as well. So again, knowing exactly how much to bend the knees and keep the elbow in and giving more descriptive terms with the pictures. The students are still checking their own ability using the check sheet. At this age, students are less likely to be honest about whether or not they have learned or mastered the skill. They don't want to look like they aren't able or capable to do everything on the check sheet if their friends are doing better, or if they don't want their friend to feel like they didn't do well, they're more likely to say that they did instead of actually knowing that they mastered the skill. So it's a little more difficult to assess at this level because of this reason. Safety is still a concern. At this age, students are more likely to want to play than to complete the skill, especially when given the ability or time to do it and complete it on their own. So it's good for the teacher to still be in control of the safety issues. But again, with this teaching style, it is completely on the student to teach and to learn the skill and assess themselves. So there is absolutely no